Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Bill Doreste. I'm the CEO and the founder of the Cranial Release Technique. It's Wednesday, June 10th, 2015, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Lisa DiFalco. Lisa is a massage therapist and a occupational therapist. She's am I correct, Lisa? You're the president or the founder of the MLD Institute. Would that be correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. The Manual Lymph Drainage Institute, which I have, over the years, I've been teaching in Florida since about 2005, and many of my students over the years, Lisa, kept saying to me, you have to meet Lisa DiFalco. You have to meet Lisa DiFalco. And then I remember I met you one time at the FSMTA convention in Champions Gate, and you were in the lazy river, and you were a lymphocyte, I think you were telling me, or something, and I sort of said hello to you as you...
As I was floating by?
As you floated by, that was it. And I think that was my first interaction with you, and then since then, I know you've taken the training, you've taken the Cranial Release Technique Mastery class, and I know you're using that in conjunction with MLD. And really the reason why I wanted to sort of put this call together was this article that came out a week ago that was sent to me by one of my students about this new anatomical finding that was published. So first of all, let me say good morning to you, Lisa, and welcome to the call.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Doreste, and good morning to the rest of the world listening to our conversation.
Right. So what's the significance of this new research that was just unveiled a few weeks back? What does this mean to the MLD practitioner? Does it mean anything to the non-MLD practitioner? And maybe we'll sort of connect the dots as we continue here.
Well, it absolutely does. It verifies something that was written, nearly a century ago, Dr. Doreste, by a doctor named Dr. Vaughter, who is credited with creation of manual lymphatic drainage. And in a nutshell, basically that our body has a plumbing system that filters away our debris. And in this article, it alludes to those plumbing channels in the brain that they never really saw before, virtually because they're microscopic. And now they've discovered them. And like anything else, could they possibly get plugged up, therefore lending itself to disease and disease progression, things like Alzheimer's? Yes, this is a significant finding in our modern day, and it verifies those initial hypotheses that he had about the brain and its plumbing system.
So that we're clear on this, because as I mentioned to you before we got on the air, as a chiropractor, the lymphatic system was just something maybe we spent an hour or two on over 4 years of school. When you say the plumbing system of the body, now we're not talking about arteries, veins, capillaries. We're talking about a completely different system within the body.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so what is manual lymphatic drainage? What's the how is it applied, and what's the benefit of having it done? And maybe who would benefit from it?
Well, anyone who has a lymphatic system, which if you're alive, you have one.
That sounds like cranial release. That's right. If you have a brain and a skull, you'd benefit from cranial release. So good. Okay.
Absolutely. And the two of them together, and we'll talk about that, how they interrelate and how they work together so well. But essentially, you have these tiny vessels, this network of vessels that are much smaller than your veins and arteries. And there's a gentle technique. It feels somewhat like a massage, but to clarify it for people, massage is directed toward your muscles, which are deeper into your body. Your lymph vessels are just below the surface of the skin, and that's why the technique is applied very gently to encourage the lymph fluids that carry away the toxins through those tiny, delicate capillaries to the lymph nodes to be filtered out and keep your body clean. And how I explain it to lay people is this. If you have a car, you have oil, and that oil needs to periodically be serviced. It needs to be cleaned. It needs to be changed. And that will keep your car healthy and all the parts functioning. That's what lymph drainage does for your body.
Great. And would anybody, are there certain signs or symptoms that someone would know or the public would know that, gee, maybe I should look into MLD, or is it something that you would just recommend everybody have done on a somewhat regular basis? Whatever that basis is, I don't know, so maybe you can educate me on that.
Well, in European standards, they recommend early on, even from childhood all the way until your last days of life, to periodically, maybe 3-4 times a year, on a quarterly basis, have a manual lymph drainage session, which would last about an hour. Kind of like, again, maintaining your car. Let's not wait for it to break down to service it. So could everyone benefit and keep a healthy lymph system for life? Yes. Now, other people will have, unfortunately, breakdowns, like your car has a breakdown, and that will be more visible. Some of these cases might be in the case of lymphedema. Maybe someone's born without lymph nodes or without the lymph vessels, and now their limb is actually swelling up very, very large, and they can't figure out why. Well, the absence of those vessels or lymph nodes is going to cause a backup of those toxins, and they will, with no doubt, need lymphatic drainage manually to move it for them. That would be an occasion where someone would need it. And now, more recently, in light of the articles that came out, we're looking at people, what about lymph backing up into the brain? And stagnant lymph, what is that doing? And it's lending itself to diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, neuromuscular disorders. Could this be an adjunct modality to help cleanse that lymph in the brain? And that's already been written about, really, for the past almost century.
Right. I wonder, too, I would imagine, now that I'm sort of understanding more about what it is MLD is and what it can do, obviously all these people that are now on the autistic spectrum would probably benefit from MLD, I would imagine.
Absolutely. And Doc, with your background as a DC, you know, and we've all talked about, what is the traditional American diet for a child?
Right.
And those long-chain fatty acids that get stuck and plugged into the lymph system at an early age, before their lymph system is even full-grown, what effect would that be having overall, not on just their health, but even their brain activity?
So for those of us on this call, or those of us that'll listen in the future that aren't too nutritionally savvy, for lack of a better word, I know I mentioned the name Matt Michaud. He's a naturopathic physician in Arizona, and he's a mutual friend of ours. And one of the things he mentioned to me when this article came out, and I spoke briefly to him, is things like margarine, things that are not natural to the body that could clog the lymphatic vessels. So in a nutshell, Lisa, are there just certain groups of foods that we should avoid, or is it kind of just eat a natural diet from the earth, or is there something that we should be eating or should not be eating, or is that too long of a discussion, maybe even for this call?
Well, it does lend itself to another whole session, but in a nutshell, yes, the more natural, the more whole the foods are. Eating the leafy greens and less fats and less sugars, those basic building blocks that we were taught, those stand in place. Now, I would like to give one little reference for listeners. Dr. Don Colbert also has written extensively on the foods, especially that young people are eating, that are lending themselves to cancers and plugging up the lymph system. That would be a great resource for them to reference. But I can just knock it down: donuts, bacon, cold cuts, French fries, some of these things that are just commonplace in the diet that we see here. These are things that we know are affecting the lymph system.
Right. And what was that doctor's name again?
Dr. Don Colbert.
Colbert, Colbert.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we can look him up as well. And so back to this article that came out, what caught my eye, obviously, is that they found lymph vessels in the dura mater, the covering of the brain and the spinal cord. And correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but those lymph vessels and the flow of the lymph fluid is the energy is produced by skeletal muscle, moving, walking, exercising, running. That's what pumps the lymphatic system. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So then when I read about something in the dura, of course, my eyes opened up. I saw that and I said, why would nature put those lymphatic vessels in the dura, okay, to drain the toxins from the brain and nervous system? So that makes sense. And then, of course, in the world of cranial release, we discussed the primary respiratory mechanism, the cranial pump. So again, in my mind, and you tell me if I'm right or wrong, if I'm on the right trail here, if someone's cranium is functioning optimally, meaning pumping, moving, breathing properly, I would imagine that would then pump the lymphatic vessels and pump the fluids and pump the debris away from the brain in a more optimized fashion, as opposed to someone who had what we could call a lesion, the misaligned, sort of stuck cranium that wasn't functioning properly. Would that make sense to you?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. And again, in your opinion, because you do MLD, I don't, and you also do cranial release, so if you do them together, it just seems to make more sense. It's like changing the oil and doing a full tune-up, like back to your analogy, it's just going to enhance the whole lymphatic system, correct?
Absolutely. I can see the difference when you put the two together, when you have the CRT technique blending in with the lymphatic drainage. In fact, if I could explain it this way, people all know what a pinched nerve is.
Right.
We've never thought or discussed what I call a pinched lymph vessel.
Mm-hmm.
With the CRT technique that you teach, Dr. Doreste, what I see it doing is it unimpinges those tiny lymph vessels. And that was the missing link. I knew that was a missing link for us because some people have lymph drainage and they're not getting the results that they desire. It's not just a matter of pumping the lymph fluid with these gentle techniques, but if the lymph vessels themselves are wound up and bound up, they need to be unwound so that the lymph can actually travel through them, kind of like a garden hose when it's kinked. You want to take the kink out. And that's what I see CRT doing hand in hand, allowing our lymph drainage to be more effective and with longer lasting results.
Fabulous. Well, I learned a lot today, Lisa, and I'm going to learn more from you as the months and years go by. In the meantime, if anybody that's listening to this wants to learn more about either learning MLD and MLD, who's out there practicing MLD right now? What types of practitioners are out there that actually provide the service?
Well, it's a wide array of people now. Dr. Doreste, you have your nurses, occupational and physical therapists who are working in and outpatient facilities. You have massage therapists who are working with some of the sports and the high-end med spas and plastic surgery community, holistic physicians, and even in the chiropractic offices now. For those who unfortunately had a car accident, they're finding that benefit to be very wonderful marriage with a chiropractic adjustment or CRT.
Great. And so for people who want to learn more about you and your seminars, because you pretty much train people full time. This is what you do for a living now, right?
Yes.
Okay. How would they find Lisa DiFalco?
They can join us on the MLD Institute website at www.mldinstitute, or they can give us a call right here at the office, 954-726-5885. 709-0042, and we'll direct them to a campus where we do provide training.
Okay, that's wonderful. And of course, then for your people that may listen to this, the MLD community that maybe doesn't know much about cranial release, I'm pretty simple to reach. Just go to cranialrelease.com. That's my website, cranialrelease.com. And Lisa, it was a pleasure speaking with you. And I will see you in a few weeks at the FSMTA convention, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks so much, Dr. Doreste. I look forward to seeing you too.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. You have a good day.
You too.